Hello everyone, welcome to 7th Laurel Canada TV. We're going to be exploring Come See and Achieve Part 4. This is our immigrant education series, and we are focusing right now on a case study of the Bucumi family. We're going to zoom in on the educational experiences of the two children of the Bucumi family, who are Pierre and Marie. Pierre is a 19-year-old second-year student of computer science at University of Niagara Falls, and his younger sister is 15 years old. She lives in Moncton and goes to a French high school. Well, these two have a lot to share about their experiences and challenges in Canada. However, I want you to keep in mind that in the end, they succeed, so you can too. So what are their experiences? Pierre came 5 years ago at the age of 14, and his younger sister came at the age of 10. They all moved to Canada with hopes and dreams and with desires to help their family to grow and succeed. And how are they doing now? Well, let's check them out. When they first came in the middle of COVID-19, just a few months before the complete shutdown of the whole world, they had some questions in their mind. How would they be accepted in school? Will they have good friends? Would they be able to understand the education system and succeed in a bilingual city like Moncton, New Brunswick? And what happened? They actually did succeed. The challenges that they faced when they first came was being able to make friends, because they were seen as people of a visible minority in the sense that they have a darker skin color. And so they stood out in their French high school, and they did get some stares and some questions about their Burundian heritage, their culture, and so many other questions. However, like I shared in the other 3 episodes, they used TGIF, and I'm going to expand on that more, so stay tuned. Well, what other challenges did they experience? Pierre and Marie had to learn a different way of schooling. They were more used to paper-based writing and note-taking and exams in Burundi. However, in Canada, they had to do most of it digitally, so they had to learn a little bit more on computer skills, and that's why Pierre decided that he will go to computer science for university, and that's where he is excelling so far in his second year. So they had to go through a bit of a transition in terms of their use of technology, but they got a lot of help from their family members and their chosen family, as well as people in the school system who really supported them and gave them that extra support. So you can expect that when you come to Canada, or if you're already in Canada, there's a lot of support for children. They went to after-school programs, they joined boys and girls clubs to encourage them, to let them know that their identity is a beautiful aspect of their lives in terms of their cultural heritage and their bilingual, or I should say even trilingualism. And they were able to use these experiences and learnings to improve their skills and to get high grades in school. Excellent. They came out top in their classes separately, and they're still excelling till date. What other challenges did they face? Well, the social culture here elevates children and encourages them to speak out and express themselves, and they weren't used to that kind of freedom. In Burundi, they had to be careful when they spoke, especially around elders. They had to listen and do exactly what their parents said. But here, if they experienced any challenges, they could tell it to their teachers or to a social worker or to the principal of a school, and quickly their parents would be summoned. So remember what I shared about parenting in the other video? That also plays out here as well. They had more freedom to be able to dictate things, how they wanted things to go in their school life and also socially for them. So they had to balance that freedom to see that their parents are still leaders of the family and they still have to obey and listen to them according to the family's understanding of parenting and children. You know, they followed the Bible and they had to adhere to their holy scripture in order to gain guidance on how to navigate this new level of found freedom in Canada. Well, what else did they experience? They experienced racism, right? They were called names sometimes on playgrounds, in classrooms, sometimes even their names, that is their Burundian names, were very difficult to pronounce according to some of the staff members in their school. So they decided to go by Pierre and Marie, which are their English names, or I can say French names. So how did they deal with racism? They just focused on their studies. They got high grades. They were able to also speak their Burundian language in school among other children from Burundi, and that way they were able to form a little community of theirs in school so that they can have a shared understanding of their challenges. And they started a club. They were able to share the benefits of various cultures in the school system, and they invited the principal to give a speech in an event. And through all this awareness making, the school became a more inclusive environment culturally for them and for their friends. And that's what you can also expect here. There's a lot of room to challenge the status quo and to encourage people to embrace their cultural and their language identities. Okay, so now let's go back to TGIF. How are they able to use TGIF techniques in their integration to Canada, the education system? T, transnationalism. They were able to talk to their parents, their aunties, their uncles in all parts of the world to share their tears and to share their struggles and challenges. And they got good advice. Some even said, I'll be praying for you. And they were really encouraged by that. Now, how do they use G? They were able to leverage grit by spending hours and hours studying and getting the best out of their educational experience. Pierre was able to get 20 scholarships to go to university, and his parents didn't have to pay anything. Until he graduates 2 years from now, in 2027, he's not going to pay $1. And so grit was necessary to be able to produce those kinds of results. Marie, who is 15 years old, has already learned 5 languages, is on the honors roll list in her high school, and she's really going really far. I'm so excited for her. So these two were able to use grit to know that they have come to Canada to succeed and they will not take no for an answer. I also hope that you also will not take no for an answer. All right, so we have T and G down our sleeves. How about I? Identity. They use their cultural identity, being able to embrace their Burundian Canadian identity, as well as their language diversity, being able to speak 3 languages. They used it in many ways. For example, being able to look for work in the city while they were still studying in high school. Over the summer, they went to places that prioritized bilingualism and trilingualism, and they were able to volunteer for the cultural organization of Burundi here. And one even worked in a multicultural coffee shop. That was Marie. And she was able to serve coffee in 3 different languages. It was really cool. Essentially, they knew that moving to Canada did not mean leaving behind all that they already knew about themselves. Being Burundian, having various languages, having a Christian identity in terms of their religious affiliation. they honed in on all of these and used it to their benefit. And you also can do the same. That's right. So, for F, in terms of family, they had a lot of mentorship in their family. Their mom, that's Mutoni, and their dad, Mukisha, sat them down and let them know all the goals that they had for them. We want you to succeed. We want you to get A's. We want you to be able to graduate university and land your very first job and get an apartment for yourself and build a business and all these things. And yeah, that could be scary. There is a common saying that African parents tend to be hard on their children. However, here in Canada, we see that parents having high expectations for their children and providing the resources and the support really helps the children to navigate their way into the future as young adults. And that is what the research says. Although it might appear daunting at first, these children have an expectation on them and they're able to navigate through the educational systems and the career systems because their parents are depending on them to succeed. So if you do have children, or as children, if you're watching this, I want you to know that your parents' expectations or the expectations that you place on your children could be helpful. There has to be a balance though with communicative parenting where you're available when they need you and you're always there giving a helping hand, sharing an encouragement and motivation for the week, for example, just to help them to see that achievement and success is possible. So with all these TGIF, I want to tell you that Pierre and Marie have been succeeded in Canada for the last 5 years, and tomorrow and next year will not be any different. I wish you all the very best in your immigration endeavors, and I know that you also will succeed. All these research tips were all fine-tuned just for you, and as you continue to follow us, you will explore a lot more about what it takes to succeed in Canada. Please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment below. Ask me a question, what you really want to know about the Bucumi family, and we'll be there to answer you. Have a wonderful day, and bye. See you in the next video.